And now they're away on a race of 250 miles, 80 laps. And those streamlined, wicked-looking foreign cars set a pace that was much too hot for the home product. Some were capable of 200 miles an hour.
The Donington Grand Prix of the mid-30s, the German invasion of Mercedes and Auto Union. 60,000 spectators and Tazio Nuvolari, a famous winner.
But lapping like a wizard gone frantic, Nuvolari number 4 makes up for lost time. And he crashes home to win at an average of 80.49 miles an hour. Veteran of 1,000 races, he's nearly 50, but he's got the nerve of headlong youth.
Today, Donington commemorates those days with the V12 Auto Union in the Donington Museum, among the circuit's famous collection of single-seater racing cars. Bikes and sidecars played their part in the pre-war days, striking an even sharper contrast with the action that we're likely to see today. The museum gives pride of place to the streamlined machinery that made Jock Taylor Britain's last sidecar world champion, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. Its first ever World Championship car race this afternoon, but 51 years ago, the Mercedes Silver Arrows, with drivers like von Brauchitsch, Caracciola and Britain's Dick Seaman, drew a 60,000 crowd to the circuit for an enthralling duel with their German rivals Auto Union. And such was the spectacle that they agreed to race again at Donington the following year, the race scheduled for September 1939. The declaration of war put paid to that, so it's exactly 50 years on that Mercedes make their return. And what a return as they try and keep at bay the challenge of Jaguar and Nissan, and indeed the Spice, tied with the third best time. A crowd of over 300,000 watched as motorsport leader Hunlein was introduced to the drivers. There were 20 starters, von Brauchitsch, Lang and Seaman having made the fastest times. A great German motorsport showpiece gets off to a faltering start as the starter's green light fails. The drivers take their cue from Neubauer's flag, and the 22 laps of the 14-mile Nürburgring circuit are underway. In the early laps, the challenge of Auto Union ended when Nuvolari's rear suspension broke. And 3 Mercedes led the race in procession, von Brauchitsch from Seaman and Caracciola. Pit stops were the order of the day for these fuel-hungry cars, and Seaman refueled and changed tyres on lap 8. Neubauer's team instructions were that drivers weren't to race teammates, but to keep within 2 minutes of each other. So Seaman obeyed this instruction, keeping to second place. However, after his pit stop, Seaman put up the fastest lap of the day. Lap 16 saw von Brauchitsch already in the pits when Dick Seaman arrived for a second refueling stop. And with fuel being pumped at the rate of 5 gallons a second, any spillage could have dramatic consequences. And this pit stop would decide the result of the race. Von Brauchitsch's fuel ignites, he hurls himself from the car as crowds scatter on the grandstand above. The fire is rapidly extinguished, and amazingly the car is still drivable, and a shocked von Brauchitsch would climb back behind the wheel. Uhlenhaut was alongside von Brauchitsch's car when the fuel went up.
The mechanic who operated the valve for filling the tank had to operate according to the level of the fuel in the tanks, which was indicated by 2 little windows on the rear tank. In the excitement, he made a slight mistake, and a little fuel overflowed, not too much, but a bit. And the mechanic who operated the starter motor started too early, and the exhaust fumes enlightened the fuel which was laying on the floor.
Behind the drama, Seaman rejoins the race, urged on by Neubauer. He's into the lead. The brave von Brauchitsch climbs back into his scorched cockpit and sets off in vain pursuit of Seaman. But he wasn't to complete the lap. crashing the car and returning to confront Hundlin, the car in a ditch, the steering wheel still in his hands. Seaman now has a comfortable lead over Lang. The crowd enthusiastically applaud a Mercedes victory, but it had been 15 years since an English driver had been behind the wheel of a Grand Prix winning car. George Monkhouse there to make a colour recording of Caracciolla's congratulations to the brilliant Seaman. The race was front-page news in the German papers. Seaman the winner at an average speed of 80 miles an hour. Coverage in Britain was confined to the specialist press, but pretty soon the sport would be front-page news here too. Seaman's victory, but the cartoonists and Ullenaut would not forget the performance of von Brauchitsch.
Brauchitsch took his bad luck very calmly. He didn't blame the mechanics for making the mistake. He drove off the road and he came back to the pits with the steering wheel in his hand. We didn't believe it. Accidentally coming off was quite impossible.
The swastikas suggest how close Europe was to disaster, but Nürburgring 1938 was a day of celebration for Mercedes and Dick Seaman.
Memories of 50 years ago, and interestingly, rumours abound now in Formula One that Mercedes are poised to return to Grand Prix motor racing.
Sheer airfield just outside Towston.